Sports.
Dude, I want to talk about your boy. Well, my boy, I guess. I want to talk about this, but I want to get that out the way. I gotta give my told you so moment, man. For those who listen to our stuff, I'm sure you guys remember about a month and a half ago, Kev, I, and Nate had talked about, you know, potential landing spots for DC, and my number one spot was the Saints. Just made the most sense to me from outside looking in. And sure enough, he signed a 4-year deal. And there's a lot of haters, a lot of people who are like, "Yeah, good luck, whatever." But dude, I honestly think he's gonna go down there and crush it. You think he'll lead them to the playoffs, Kev?
Yeah, I do. I agree with you, and I can confirm all of your claims are true. And yeah, here's my thing with Derek Carr, and you can attest to this. I actually had to speak on this on the Necessary Roughness podcast last night as we were talking about this acquisition briefly. And my whole defense for Derek Carr was he's likely about to play with the best defense he's played with, maybe ever in his NFL career. When you just look at it statistically, the Saints historically run a better unit. But what I think the stat I saw, the cool stat, bro, was what was it? The 20th was the best rated defense that Derek Carr ever got to play with. And obviously, you know more about the other issues with the constant carousel with the coaching staff and different offensive coordinators and just overall front office turmoil.
Yeah.
Saints are by no means perfect. We all know about Bountygate, but in general, I think he's set up for success. That division is ripe for the taking.
Oh, yeah.
There's no other team that's even good in that division. So, yeah, man, I think you're 100% right, and they're my immediate favorite to win this division right now. What about you?
Yeah, I'd have to say the same, man. I mean, there's no one else that presents a danger to that in that division. I mean, you got the Bucks, who knows what the hell's going on there. Panthers are probably still going to be trash. And who am I forgetting? Who's the other squad?
You are forgetting, what did we say? You said Saints, Bucks, Panthers.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, why is it escaping me right now in the South? Oh my goodness. Falcons.
Yeah,
Atlanta
so
Falcons.
That explains it. What we forgot about it? But anyways, yeah, dude. So I mean, there's no team that's gonna really, I think, present a real danger to preventing those Saints from making the playoffs. Now that they have so I mean, say what you want about Derek Carr, man, but he's reliable. I mean, he rarely misses a game. He's going to be there. And he's got a high IQ, man. Like, you put him in the right scheme. I mean, he does pick up schemes pretty fast. I mean, he picked up Gruden's scheme pretty fast, which by all accounts is a pretty intricate, complicated scheme to learn. He picked it up pretty quick and has success in that scheme. And, considering how many coaches he's had in such short periods of time, dude, like, it seems like every 2 or 3 years he's getting a different coaching staff, different coordinator, and he always makes it work. I mean, unfortunately, this past season was by far his least lucky season as far as, like, seeming to fit in the scheme, but I don't know how much of that's him or how much of that's the coach. But if you ask me, I'm going to point the finger at Josh Daniels because I think he's a scrub. But, I mean, I think Derek Carr is I think he's going to flourish. And also, I mean, Dennis Allen drafted Derek Carr when he was coaching for the Raiders his rookie year. So they have some history. They have, the rapport, and they've kept in touch these years. So it's not like they're strangers to each other by any means. So I think the chemistry, if I had to guess, it's going to be right where it left off, if you ask me. And I don't think it's going to be a problem getting that to work out for them. So, and they got some young weapons, dude. I mean, you mentioned the defense. Defense is solid. They got Alvin Kamara still coming out the backfield. They got a decent line. And they got some young receivers, man. I mean, Chris Olave killed it as a rookie. Honestly, I think he'd have had even a better year if he had a better quarterback throwing to him last year. You know what I'm saying? So, You know, he had fucking Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Like that's who was throwing him the ball, dude. So, you know, what are you supposed to do with that? So, I don't really, I don't really think he's gonna. I think he's gonna have a lot better luck with Derek Carr. Who, I mean, dude, he can sling it, man. He's gonna. I mean, dude, he was stuck in an organization for almost 10 years. That's dysfunction after dysfunction. Like Raiders are a definition of NFL dysfunction, if you ask me. And that's coming from a fan. Like I can admit that. Like they're them and the Browns, man. They're those teams that like they always hurt themselves. Like they just can't seem to get out of their own way. So I think now that he's in a better spot, and he's got a chip on his shoulder, man. He's probably felt like he got something to prove. He feels like he was done wrong, which I agree. I think he was done kind of dirty personally, and he's done nothing but. I mean, he set all kinds of franchise records for passing yards, passing touchdowns. Like he's arguably the best quarterback they've had in their franchise history. If you were to look at like stats and records, like if you're one of those people who put weight in that, then yeah, on paper he is the best quarterback they ever had on paper. So again, that's from a stat perspective, but you're gonna have those people who are like, well, you could never take them to playoffs and win a game. He gets them there, but never won. Yeah, you're right, but how much of that's all on him, dude? Like, there's a lot of questionable play calls, and that last year's well, not now, it's the year before last, but when they faced Cincinnati, like they almost won, dude. It came down to the wire. Like they could have won that game, but again, there was some weird play calls, and it's like, dude, I don't put that blame on Derek Carr, and I'm rooting for him. I'll be honest. I'm not one of those fans that are bitter that he left. I think he did the best thing for himself. I hope he has much success. And yeah, I mean, obviously, whenever we face the Saints, I hope we whip their ass. But other than that, I'm hoping he has success, and I hope he does get him to the playoffs and beyond. So that's where I'm at with it, dude. What's your thoughts on it, Kev?
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and especially I like the added insight with the reunion, and I do think he's going to be playing with the chip on his shoulder. Absolutely, I think he's got a lot to prove. And when you mentioned the lack of credit or the hate that he gets for losing in the playoffs or not being able to get him to the playoffs and win, I kind of think it reminds me of the Jordan LeBron debate where people are very selective about what it means, how much worth is there in taking a bad team to the playoffs even if you don't win or if you don't make it to the championship, where so on one hand nobody counts all the years Michael Jordan got bumped in the first round because he never lost in the finals, but then other people want to give LeBron a ton bonus credits for taking teams to the finals where Larry Hughes was the next best guy. So when I think of it, I look at some of those teams that Derek Carr was able to have some success with, and maybe he deserves more credit than he's due. Now, of course, his detractors will point out some of the turnovers and stuff like that, which I think some of that is warranted. But also, I think you have that a guy with a big arm like his. You're gonna take chances. You don't. I would never want my quarterback to play scared. So I honestly don't mind. Honestly, I'll take interceptions over fumbles all day because at least yardage wise, chances are an interception is going to be a little closer to feeling like a punt than Matt Ryan, for instance, who fumbled the ball 17 times for the Colts last year. So yeah, I think all things accounted for, I think this was a good move. I have a question for you, Sean, because I've mentioned this in the past, and it's now being rumored again. What are your thoughts on the resurfacing rumors of Tom Brady potentially going to Miami to play with the Dolphins? Do you think there's anything to that?
I don't. I think it's all just speculation. I mean, I think he tweeted something recently. Saw something about like him not having the time or something to go back to playing. I don't know. It led me to believe whatever it was. It sounded like he didn't have interest in coming back. But
So what he said, just which I don't necessarily disagree with you, but what he said, he quote tweeted and said, anyone who thinks this is serious, or anyone who thinks I have time to play in the NFL has clearly never adopted a kitten for their daughter. So for what it's worth, cats don't stay kittens for very long. I think that cat will probably be able to shit in a litter box on its own by the time training camp rolls around. But, he probably won't come back. But I find it interesting that there's this recurring Dolphins rumor. And if Tua, for instance, is deemed to never be able to play again, the Dolphins are going to have a playoff roster that suddenly needs a quarterback, and that just reeks of a Tom Brady type situation where he might join.
I did hear something about Tua's taking like Taekwondo classes or something, or like some kind of martial arts where he can learn how to fall without getting concussions.
I don't think it's the falls that are doing it. Maybe he needs to learn how to. No, I mean, I don't think it was him hitting the ground, or was it? Maybe on one of them it was how he hit the ground. But is he going to Taekwondo his way out of a helmet to helmet sack? Like what?
I don't know, dude. This is what I read, man, and it did make me kind of giggle when I saw it. But I don't know, man. I'm always rooting for someone to be able to do what they love to do. So if he still wants to play football and he's determined to keep himself healthy enough to play, I'm all for it. But I mean, he's got talent, man. It would really suck to see someone with his potential, his career end so early. I mean, it's very reminiscent. You know this all too well. With Andrew Luck, he retired earlier than anyone anticipated because he couldn't stay healthy, man. I mean, I figure after a while, you probably do get tired of having surgeries every year and not being able to play with your kids and not being able to do a lot of stuff you want to do because you're, in a cast or bedridden or whatever. It's like that's not fun, man. Like, I mean, you got to ask yourself how much is it really worth it? So, I mean, you know, if he wants to play and he's determined to try to stay in the league and take the necessary steps to ensure he can do that, then all for him, man. Hats off to him. But it wouldn't surprise me if, you would also want to think that if a team, I mean, granted, no, it's a business, but I would like to think there's some humanity left in sports, like enough to where it's like, hey, this is someone's life we're gambling with, man. If he's been hurt this much, especially with the concussions, that's scary shit. Like you would think someone would, at some point would step in and be like, hey, man, we love you, dude. Appreciate your determination, but I don't want to be the reason you get killed. So like, or die because you have some kind of severe brain damage. Like, when's enough enough? I'm hoping I don't know, man. I'm hoping someone makes the right decision. Like, I don't know. What do you think about it? Do you think he should keep playing, or do you think he should call it a career, man? What's your thoughts on it, Kev?
That's a tough one. I agree with everything you said about wanting people to be able to chase their dreams and do what they want to do. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think this could be a situation, interestingly enough, also in Miami in the NBA. This reminds me a little bit of the Chris Bosh situation, where his was a heart condition, but here was a guy who wanted to play and by all accounts still had the ability to be a contributor. And of course, the Miami Heat, especially at that time, would have loved to have had him around. He could have, and there are other teams too that would have loved to have had Chris Bosh's services for a playoff run. But like you said, there are times where it's bigger than business, it's bigger than sports, it's bigger than everybody's bottom line and any individual's desire for greatness and glory. So I think we have to let the doctors decide that one. But so I won't say that I think he should retire. However, how many concussions? What is that number? If he hasn't reached it, what is the number? Because I do think that number, I think that needs to be decided for him. I think about look at like the Troy Aikmans of the world, and hell, to a much worse extent, Junior Seau. Just like CTE's not a joke either, man. There's long term, so it's not about him potentially, God forbid, losing his life on that field. It's about what's going to happen. He's only got maybe 5. If he's lucky, he has 7, 8 years left of this anyway. So, like, how long is a guy going to live if he continues to take those hits to the head? He might have already done irreparable damage just by the 3 concussions he's had this year. So, I hope he gets a chance to play, but I will be hoping he doesn't get hit. That's for sure. Another guy that might be thrown in the mix if Tua does have to miss an extended amount of time. And I was really shocked about this one, Sean. I had to double check and triple check on Twitter. I'm still not certain that this isn't a hoax, but apparently Phillip Rivers is calling around telling people he wants to return to the NFL. I've heard the 49ers is a possibility, maybe the Jets. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think Phillip Rivers has enough in the tank, and should anyone consider signing him?
Personally, I would say hell to the nah. Considering, when I saw a little bit, it didn't look like he had much left. So, me personally, no, I wouldn't sign him as a player. If he wanted to come onto a coaching staff, maybe like some kind of role as a QB coach, hell yeah. He has plenty of knowledge to share, and his leadership is in question, but his physical ability to keep playing football, I just don't think is there. From what I saw, that last season he did, and you can attest, like, it didn't look he still had much left on there. So, me personally, no, I wouldn't sign him as a player. What would you do? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, he didn't have the greatest final season. It started out poorly in Indianapolis, which I think was part of that was him getting accustomed to that system and everything, and it got better throughout the season. And with the benefit of hindsight, knowing that if he is entering the market at the same time as Carson Wentz, I would say that any team that's considering signing Carson Wentz might want to just give Phillip Rivers a call instead. But yeah, I don't know. It would have to be a really good team, and the Phillip Rivers that it would be very interesting if he were to come back and make a playoff run, because for years Phillip Rivers was the offense, he was the team, playing along with LT and Antonio Gates, and the defense would let them down, or for whatever reason they could never win the big one. So if Rivers were to make any sort of long run, it would be more of like the Joe Flacco, Trent Dilfer kind of Kerry Collins Super Bowl run, where he is just a game manager at that point. He's going to have to go somewhere with a dominant run game. So maybe San Francisco is a viable option. When I think of it, I think of San Francisco just because they have 2 young quarterbacks that are both injured. So I could see maybe them wanting to do some sort of short-term project, knowing that at any point in time they're going to have Purdy and or Lance available to come back. But no, I'd be moving in a different direction, and which leads me to my next question, Sean, which is a guy I just mentioned. Carson Wentz has been cut, and the only articles that I've seen are actually mentioning a possible return for him as a backup in Philadelphia. But what do you think? Is it over for Carson Wentz? Is he going to have no choice but to go be a backup somewhere to get another job?
Yeah, I would say so. I haven't seen anything that indicates his ability to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, he hasn't looked good since his first couple seasons in Philly, if you ask me. Like, ever since he got that first major injury in Philly, his second season, like, he hasn't looked like the same dude. Like, I don't know. It doesn't look. I don't know if he's running scared out there or what. If he's just having some, issues, like mental, like belief in himself. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like his confidence has been high. I know he's had some. It probably does suck being in a position where it feels like coaching staff, ownership doesn't feel like a lot of people have faith in you. Even the fan bases seem to give up on you. I'm sure it does mess with your mental after a while. So, I don't know if that's the issue or what, but it's just hard for me to be like, yeah, me as a fan, if my team was to sign Carson Wentz, I would not be happy about it at all. Especially if he was coming in as the starter. I'm like, dude, that's enough for me to just not pay attention this year. Like, fuck that. I'm not gonna waste my time watching Carson Wentz on Sundays. Just give my team an L. Like, I'm cool. But yeah, that's just me. What do you think, Kev? Would you want him to sign with the? Would you bring him back? Would you bring him back?
No, not once, not never. I've seen that posted in jest a couple of times. I think it's a funny little meme. But no, you know this. It's well documented for those who longtime listeners. I didn't like it the first time they went and got Carson Wentz, and I was so happy that they were able to move off of him in any way and move him to Washington. And despite, it's one of those things where Chris Ballard, he kind of, or the team in general, if you don't want to put it all on Ballard, I don't know that it was all Ballard with Frank Reich being there and Jim Irsay always being involved. It's hard to pin it all on one guy, the Carson Wentz thing, but seeing they go from hero to goat back to hero with that whole move of getting Carson Wentz. You give up some big assets, and then he costs you the last game of the season. Then you don't go to the playoffs, and then you're able to move off of him for some really small assets. And then the Commanders were kind of coy with his playing time, in my opinion. They made sure that those conditional draft picks were never cashed in on by the Colts. Carson sat for a few extra weeks after he healed from that injury, but no, I would not want to see him on my team in particular. I don't have any ill will towards him. I hear he's been wonderful in the community in Indianapolis. I think he still lives in Indianapolis, actually. So, yeah, by all accounts, he's a great guy, and I do hope he gets another shot. But I think he's going to have to go be a backup somewhere and potentially wait for that opportunity to come again to be a bridge quarterback. And we've seen it with Geno Smith, so it can be done. Geno Smith's a guy that just signed a 3-year deal, Sean. And what do you think? Does that mean the Seahawks are out on a draft or drafting a quarterback here in the first round this year?
It's funny you asked that because I saw something earlier today. I read an article. Supposedly, the Seahawks and the Raiders have been talking about potential trade up. So the Raiders moving up to 5 and giving up the 7th pick to the Seahawks amongst other picks and assets. But yeah, from what I understand, it doesn't sound like they're looking for a quarterback, at least in the draft. Now, I mean, maybe they sign a free agent backup. I don't know, but it doesn't. It sounds like they're putting all their eggs in the Geno basket, man, as far as the starter goes. So, I mean, had a great year. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping it wasn't like a, fool's gold type of thing, but I always enjoy the underdog stories, man. For someone like Geno who's been shit on for so long, came into to the Jets with all these high expectations, didn't pan out, bounced around for a while, journeyman, didn't have a whole lot of success. And he lands in Seattle, playing under Pete Carroll, and have a phenomenal year. So, dude, I'm all about it. I'm hoping it works out for him, and maybe he is their long-term answer for at least the next few years, and that'd be cool. But there is something I do need to ask you, Kev, because I am running short on time. I want to make sure I get your feedback, your input on something. So what's going on with Jeff Saturday, man? Is that still a thing?
No, thank goodness. That is done. No, the Colts have hired Shane Steichen. Speaking of Eagles, and this is I'm okay with it. He was my second choice, admittedly, but I was waffling on Raheem Morris, my first choice, early on. Um, and my fear with the Colts is that they replaced they replaced a coach that they hired. He was an offensive coordinator from the Eagles who was hot off of a Super Bowl run, and they fired that coach and replaced him with an Eagles offensive coordinator hot off of a Super Bowl run. So I don't like that. I don't like how quickly history has repeated itself here. Part of me would have loved if we had hired just anyone else in the league other than an Eagles coordinator. But if I remove that one aspect of it, I am happy with the hire. And the most important part of at least my personal favorite in the coaching staff, Reggie Wayne has been retained. So Reggie Wayne, and then honestly, a little more seriously, the most important piece of the staff, defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, here to stay. So makes sense that the Colts went with an offensive mind instead of a defensive head coach.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I mean, I like Gus Bradley. I thought it was unfortunate that we only had him for the one season because I thought he did a great job. I mean, our defense was pretty solid that year, all things considered. Not having a whole lot of pieces, he made the best of it. So, yeah, dude, I knew you guys were getting a stud when he came over there. And, yeah, sounds like, I mean, you guys had a pretty good defense last year, too. So, you know, your boy, Ngakwe, is looking pretty solid. Yeah, dude, fucking I did want to touch base on another topic real quick. I know you wanted to talk about the Suns with me. So,
Yeah.
do you think KD is the answer, dude? What are your thoughts on that?
I do. So I will acknowledge here quickly. He did get injured in the pregame today. He slipped. It appears he slipped on a puddle potentially in the layup line in warm-ups, and ankle injury doesn't look great. Looked like a pretty bad roll, but yeah, that could hopefully only be a couple weeks maximum. But that part in particular is unfortunate. But what I have seen from KD, he's shooting 69% from the field in the 3 games that he's played. And what I love about a player like KD, because he's not a ball-dominant scorer, he can get his offense. He can get his buckets within an offense. Like, you don't have to. It's not like with Luka and Kyrie right now in Dallas, where after 2 or 3 Luka possessions, you have to make sure you let Kyrie bring the ball up, and then you just know he's going to ISO and try to score. Kevin Durant, you can just call a screen for him, or call a set that you normally call for Booker, and just call it for Durant this time, and he can get open, and off no dribbles or one dribble, he can take a shot. And now that doesn't mean he can't ISO, and also you can post him up. And so I think that once they get things going, the Suns are one of my contenders right now to get to the West. I most recently picked it as Denver and the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, but the Suns could very well be taking the Clippers spot in that selection for me as it goes. How are you feeling, though? Because this is your squad. Do you think this is the year for Devin Booker and maybe more importantly for Chris Paul to finally get a ring?
I mean, I hope so. I did see that thing with the ankle, and I didn't can necessarily tell how serious it was. I just saw like a brief clip on it. So, yeah, I mean, that was my biggest fear, man. It's just he can stay healthy. I mean, if KD's able to at least stay healthy through the playoffs, yeah, I think they got a solid shot of at least making it to the ship. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, man. But as you know, it's pretty well documented. I wasn't a huge fan of the trade. I mean, yeah, the few games he's played, he has looked good. I will say that. And they beat the Mavs the other night. Sneaked out of there with a dub. Something that was cool, but I don't know, man. I'm still not sold on it. But again, if they do make the playoffs and they make a deep run, and I might feel differently. But as of right now, I'm still kind of in the air about it, to be honest.
That's fair. I don't blame you for being, cautious. I will say I think it's going to mean great numbers for Aiton as well. They seem to be. The last time I watched, they did forget down the stretch for, like the second and third quarter. Early on, they did a good job. Chris Paul does a good job usually of remembering to feed his big guys. All you really got to do is get them 2 to 3 looks a quarter, man. Especially when they're as dominant on the glass and can be a good shot blocker like Aiton. You want those guys to be motivated to play hard on both ends of the ball. So you got to remember to get them the ball every once in a while. But even besides that, just with the fact that so many people will look to double KD or double Booker off of a pick, and Aiton's just going to end up with free opportunities at rebounds because people are going to be out of position and unable to box him out, and he should feast. He should be a double-double machine by the time they get to the playoffs. And I do think there is a possibility that they could get humming at the right time. You know, the Lakers are hurt. I don't think the Mavericks have enough. I don't think Kyrie was enough. Everyone's lucky that the Pelicans are dealing with this Zion injury because I think they're legit, but they're not going to be able to pull it together in time. Zion's injury keeps getting worse. So, yeah, I think it's okay to be optimistic about your Suns, though, but I understand being cautious, especially with the playoff injury history of both Kevin Durant and Chris Paul at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm hoping for the best, but not trying to get my hopes up because that leads to nothing but frustration and not really trying to be just walking around angry because of some basketball, dog. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to keep a level head and just, enjoy the good times as they come, but also, anticipate it not necessarily working out the way we want. So, but yeah, man, how you feeling about your Pacers though? Tyrese looks like he's been balling out.
He's had some fantastic. He's had a game-winning buzzer. He's had a buzzer-beating game-winning three from deep. He had one not too long ago that ended a quarter. And then he actually had two buzzer-beating threes in one game in two different quarters, but one of them he released just too late. So he's been playing well, and overall the Pacers have played well. I think they're tied for 11th right now in the East. They're doing everything that I like to see. So, for instance, when they played Philly, they were up for a good chunk of that game, and they lost a hard-fought game to one of the top three teams in the East. That's exactly what my brand of Pacers fan is looking for right now, because it's a young, talented team with all the upside in the world, and they really just need one more good draft and maybe a couple of veteran rotation players to add to their mix in the offseason. They're really one good offseason away from being able to be either like a Memphis or a Sacramento or even Phoenix when Phoenix did it, being one of those teams that maybe can get a year ahead, and make a deep playoff run a little early than everyone expects. But I think, this could be a playoff team next year, so long as they don't screw up and make the play in this year. I think that could be one of the worst things that could happen. Of course, I'll be excited if they have a play-in game. You always are as a fan, but in the back of my head, I'll be thinking of the long-term repercussions of that. So I want them to continue to lose exciting, close games. That's what I look for, Sean.
That is fair, my dude. Well, I do appreciate you having me on, Kev, but I'm going to have to log on out of here, dog.
Not a problem, brother. Appreciate you joining us. I hope you are able to join us again next Wednesday. We're going to make this a regular thing here. So I look forward to talking to you again, brother. But again, thanks for your time, man, and good luck out there.
Appreciate you, sir. Thanks for having me. Everyone listening, have a great night, man.
This dude just did this